we'll check it.
Really?
But if people want to review the live stream, they can.
Sure.
So that's how you would, so if I miss anything, we'll.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Love it. Should I get emails like that?
Give me some, huh?
$5,000.
Very good.
I'll
Can
take
you
it.
dress up?
Do they normally?
You say? Going to a wedding?
I
No,
get
I just came from
about
Vienna.
80% of the grants I
You guys are
apply
back in session, right?
for, which I understand is a really high
Fine.
percent.
You probably write well,
Well,
or know what they're
I
looking
just,
for,
I know what they're, I tailor every grant request to
instead of just,
who I'm requesting to.
that's good.
And besides that, I have a program that really pulls at people's heartstrings anyway, so it doesn't help. I
I'm
use
ready.
the hell out of it.
Well, good evening, everybody. We'd like to bring this workshop to order. This is the Caldwell Urban Renewal Agency workshop. It's scheduled for today, February 12th, 2024 at 5 o'clock. Workshop session for the purpose of discussing projects and delineating the boundaries concerning a potential new Caldwell Urban Renewal allocation area. This is one of the most transparent processes known to mankind. There's nothing sneaky about it. There's nothing underhanded about it. It's done wide open in the public arena. So who is speaking to the matter at hand? Is Stephen here? There he is.
There he is.
He's now.
Welcome, Mr. Jenkins.
Put him on the spot, yeah.
You're up next.
Microphone on, yeah.
Do you remember when you used to sit at the end of the bench minding your own business and the coach would call you and you weren't ready?
I do remember that.
You remember,
yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, I remember my heart just dropping as it did just a minute ago. But no worries. I was here just in the car on the phone as I typically am during this time. But happy to be here. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Excited to talk about a proposed plan for urban renewal and what we envision to be really just something that can further catalyze our downtown. Of course, our former district that was considered the East Caldwell Urban Renewal District did such a helped dramatically transform this community, and we hope to continue that good work that we've been doing. So just want to talk a little bit about that and then open up the discussion for some questions that you all might have. So urban renewal is intended to allocate a portion of the property taxes in the urban renewal area for a limited period of time to assist in the financing of urban renewal plans and to encourage private development in urban renewal areas. I've said this before, and you all have heard this from me many times, but really our goal in economic development is to create an environment where private investment can occur. I feel like urban renewal is really a tool to help us achieve that goal. So to improve specific areas of the city that are poorly developed or undeveloped, including infrastructure, roads, et cetera. And the East Caldwell Urban Renewal District was created in 1998, had a value of $204 million roughly in 2006. 2022, the value increased to $1.6 billion. North Ranch has an estimated value of $180 million, and Sky Ranch has a rough value of $500 million. You guys should be commended for the good work that you've been doing here as a commission, because that's a dramatic transformation in a relatively short period of time, and we're just excited to, again, continue that growth. Many people that come to Caldwell, that come into my office and talk to me about different opportunities, and Ophelia can attest to this, but really the transformative effect that urban renewal has for our downtown and what it's done for our community, not just in downtown, but other areas of our city, has been remarkable. So just commendable for you all. So the East Caldwell Urban Renewal District was terminated on December 21, 2022. So I believe the proper term is sunset. So it's sunset on 2022. Projects included the Caldwell Train Depot upgrades, Caldwell Wastewater Treatment Plant. Those improvements were integral to support our growth. Indian Creek daylighting, Exit 29 improvements, Indian Creek Plaza, improvements to the Caldwell Night Rodeo grounds and Simplot Stadium, as well as the infamous Ustick overpass. The previous plan, so I say previous loosely here, this is a plan that, of course, we just had a feasibility study conducted for, but really this was a plan that considered the scope of our downtown more or less, and a little bit going east to 12th. So it wasn't a dramatic footprint, but certainly one that we felt could be substantiated through an urban renewal plan. And that was what we looked at. It was approximately 80 acres. And this new proposed district is a little larger. It's 1,000 acres. So as we looked at urban renewal and the benefits that it provides to the city, I was just, as a team, we've talked a lot about the scope of the plan and what areas could be covered and otherwise improved. this is slightly hard to see, and I apologize for that, but really the intent for this workshop is to get an understanding of what might be more palatable, you know, how we might approach this moving forward, just giving us some direction as staff to really take this and provide a mold that fits the framework of what you're anticipating, what you're looking for. So to the west is Fifth Avenue, where the boundary ends. To the south, more or less, is Cleveland Boulevard. There's a little, Rob McDonald, he's not here, but he referred to this as the wart, that comes down to the south there, covers Dearborn in that area, but that south piece is kind of where the library is, and then it goes up to Cleveland, comes back over, cuts over east to Linden, and that's the boundary to the south, and then I-84 would be the boundary to the east. So proposed project list, public right-of-way, so these projects would correspond with that plan or that map. So within that map, we have properties that we've identified that could utilize the improvement, and these are some of the projects that we anticipate within that plan. So public right-of-way improvements, they include engineering, design, installation, construction, and/or reconstruction, and pedestrian and streetscape improvements. So think about the downtown and really the streetscape there, and some of the improvements that have been in place with Indian Creek Plaza, you know, some of those things. So think about that throughout certain corridors of this plan. All traffic control devices, wayfinding signage, gateway signage, security cameras, and fencing, and this would be throughout the allocation area. Beautification, landscaping, creek improvements beyond existing improved creek areas. And I'm going to just go back to the map just briefly. But as you follow Indian Creek, it does connect all the way to Linden, so there is a little bit of a strategy there to improve Indian Creek and to make sure that that natural asset is really an amenity for the community moving forward. Going back down the list, we're third bullet point to the end there, parking meters and control measures and parking garage assistance. And this would be within the downtown core area, street and parking lot. So bridge improvements and upgrades, this would be consistent with the entire area. Road widening, improvements and maintenance, again, consistent with that entire area that would be covered there within that 1,000 acres. Utilities, utility improvements, relocation improvements. So this work may be applicable to city utilities or private utilities and may include removal, installation, relocation, undergrounding, upsizing, abandonment, etc. Culvert and bridge maintenance, repair and improvements, outdoor audio and visual equipment and improvements. And this will be within the downtown core as kind of a main focal point for that improvement there. Railroad, including all work performed within the right-of-way of the railroad and either performed by the city or its designee or by the railroad company, location in the right-of-way between 4th and 12th. This work may include grade or grade-separated crossing improvements with infrastructure, beautification measures, repair and maintenance, and then rail transit improvements and all associated appurtenances. That is a Rob McDonald term right there, and that's probably an engineering term, but basically what he was indicating here was if we ever go to rail transit, you know, the passenger rail services and whatnot, as we hope to achieve in the future, this is something that we want to take into account within this plan. Property work, property acquisition, rehabilitation, site environmental cleanup, relocation and or upgrades to irrigation facilities, building facade improvements, sprinkler upgrades, restaurant incentives. That last bullet point pertains mainly to downtown buildings. We had this improvement, this incentive for the downtown core, which is certainly something that you have seen utilized throughout the downtown, and a lot of the buildings have improved their facades as a result of that incentive that was available through the previous urban renewal district. It was a 60-40 split. All right, so as we talked about the different objectives within the plan, are there any questions before I go on to some of the images that refer to those plans? Questions so far?
Chairman, I have a question.
Mr. Moore?
Stephen, thanks for giving a snapshot on this total 1,095 acres. How many businesses do we know?
That's a good question, Chairman, Commissioner Moore. I don't know off the top of my head. Looking at it, there are many sites, particularly along Chicago, in Chicago and 21st mainly, that area, where you do have some greenfield properties. Those greenfield properties do have encumbrances. So a lot of groundwater issues, topography issues, meaning that they're not level or prepared for development. So we had more of those concerns. The business growth mainly within this proposed area is concentrated in the downtown core. And I know we've had, gosh, within the downtown, I'm just gonna guess here, but we're probably 40 plus, maybe 50, somewhere in there. But I can get you a more specific number on that if that's of interest.
Downtown, if we had to estimate all the way over to, is that U-stick that's cut off there? Linden? I'm sorry.
Linden.
Linden,
How many do we think we got all the way over there? I think that's a pretty relevant. Automatically know right up front before we.
Not yet.
Okay, so we don't know how many other businesses are all the way to. If we had to guess, what do we think?
I can get you a more accurate count. Really, it's hard to determine. There's a lot of public utilities or public enterprises, I should say, with the county and, you know, their associated buildings. And then you get into a lot of the entertainment area. So you got Simplot and the rodeo and whatnot. So I can go through and decipher. 21st Avenue has a number of businesses in the college marketplace as well. So just the burgeoning area, of course, but we can go and make that assessment and provide that.
I think to make this thing relevant to everybody, I think that should be considered right up front before we. Got a lot of ideas, but how many people is that gonna affect? How many businesses is that gonna affect? I have one more question, the last one, and I'll move on. What's total taxable dollars in this area right now?
So we don't have that either. So what we're trying to determine here is essentially giving us the parameters for the boundary, and then we would take that information, go back, go review our information through the county.
Very similar to a feasibility study,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Sorry, I should probably speak into this. Okay, I just think that maybe those things should be kind of brought up before we go through a workshop, and we should have our information up front maybe, just to see how many dollars we're looking at in this area.
Mhm.
And I think that would be a little bit more helpful to move forward through a workshop.
Okay.
Just my observation.
Any
Thank you,
other
Stephen.
comments?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Warwick?
Mr. Moore, I don't know that I wanna spend all that money for a feasibility study before we even decide where we want the
I'm not
area
saying to spend any money
be.
for a feasibility study.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying this is something that we would do on our own.
Oh, okay.
I never
Got
not
it.
once said that we need to spend
Okay.
any money on a feasibility study.
Okay, perfect.
We all got that?
Mhm.
Okay, just making sure. I'm just saying that maybe this is something that, you know, we could kind of take on ourselves before we come to an area of, okay, let's do this, this, and this, and include all this.
Yeah, this is more from the lens, I would say, from staff's perspective, looking at areas that have some blight
Yeah.
and need some improvements.
Totally get
So
it.
that was the perspective that we took in analyzing what we think would be a decent configuration for a proposed urban renewal district.
Gotcha. Thank you, Stephen.
Mhm. All right, I'll just keep breezing through here. So this is an example perhaps of a facade improvement. These two buildings are downtown, and I've talked to both building owners with regard to this proposed incentive that would help improve these facades. This 401 Main Street to my left is a pretty prominent structure downtown. It's 4.5 stories roughly, and it's a historic building downtown. And we have another one here at 707 Main Street. Both owners have reached out with interest in maybe getting some support to make some enhancements to their spaces, and just giving a perspective of the Swift building, almost from the same viewpoint here that is shown with regard to the history of that space. I wish I owned some of those old vehicles that are in the image there. But you can see that there's windows shown and not that facade, right, with the wood that's covering those beautiful windows. So we would be looking to make enhancements that could restore the quality of its original elegance and form. So improve
I'm sorry, quick
Mhm.
question, Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question about those particular properties. Are there current real estate listings on those? Are those for sale?
they are.
Both of them are?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Mhm.
there's no functioning business in either one of those? They're currently vacant?
They are.
Okay.
They are. And Commissioner Moore, I can actually speak to 707. That building had a business operating in it, but the building itself was not satisfactory to maintain that business. So that business had to relocate into a different area of our downtown. So until they correct those issues in that building, another business can't
Okay.
go back in there and
Yeah,
occupy it.
okay, thank you, sorry.
Absolutely. No, thanks for clarifying. Improved sidewalks and pedestrian ramps, and again, this was taken from images from our parking study. So Kimley Horn, as they did that study for us months ago. But you can see just the inconsistencies as you walk throughout our downtown, and of course, this plan would be installed to help correct some of these issues to make sure that our downtown has a better level of consistency. Streetscape and sidewalk improvements. I showed this in a previous PowerPoint to you all, but you can see some of the streetscape improvements there, which is on Blaine Street. So to the north of Blaine Street, those improvements are in place, but to the south, it's not. So again, that inconsistency. And then, of course, as you get closer to my image to the right here, on Kimball and Albany, more or less, we have a parking lot there, 85 stall parking lot, and you can see some improvements. But as you leave the parking lot and you cross the train tracks, it definitely doesn't provide that inviting atmosphere that we'd like to have more congruent in our downtown. Lighting, security cameras, this is often something that's brought up by a lot of our business owners and folks that are walking downtown as we are asking people to park further out, and particularly employees. There's been some concern around lighting and security and how that might impact some of their younger workforce. And then parking lot improvements, you know, these enhancements can be made, you know, relative to striping or landscaping, those types of things, as we look to install this plan. Of course, this is not a comprehensive list, but this gives you an idea of what things can be done downtown with our urban renewal plan. So with that, I just want to leave the balance of time to answer any questions you have. Of course, I want this to be as hands-on as possible, so we can have some direction as to how to move forward with an active plan with some boundaries that you might find to be in alignment. Again, I just want to reiterate urban renewal's significance in our community, what it's done for Caldwell, how it's really transformed the future of this city and where we're going to go. It really helps offset the private sector. It's to me, it's a public-private partnership, more or less, that involves the public funds that can go into infrastructure and offset costs for the private sector to then support different projects that can't otherwise be brought in. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Stephen. Mr. Doty?
Hey, so Ray Lynn, how's it going? Sounds like maybe you haven't had a chance to look at this yet, or we don't have any numbers for you. I'm gonna put you on the spot, and if you just don't know right now, I guess say that. I doubt you will based off of Commissioner Moore's questions, but have you done any sort of analysis of cost of how this is going to affect the city's overall budget?
So I will say that the way the property tax works is that, and with URA, is that our budget for the city, it would not necessarily impact the city's budget. It would impact, I'm trying to make sure that I say this correctly. So the potential where it would impact is that the base is set in this area, so any potential improvements would not necessarily go to the city right away, is for property value, if this was set. So this is a different area than the east area. It's not as large, and so I don't believe it would have as big of an impact as what the east area did have on the city's budget. Will it have an impact? It will, but not as a huge of impact. But the way we set our L2 and our property tax budget is budget-based, and so we still do get that 3% if we increase it in the new construction and the annexation. But that new construction could potentially go to urban renewal instead of to the city.
All right, thank you. Also, Mr. Chair, I'd like Steve to send us the PowerPoint so I'd have time to take the map instead of making a decision tonight, and take the map around and talk to some business owners and constituents and see where they think that boundaries might be and some of their ideas as well. So,
Happy to provide that.
thank you.
More questions?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Warwick?
So Stephen, I'm gonna jump right into the hot button issue in the middle of the other hot button issue. And one of the items on your list was parking meters.
Uh-huh.
And there's already, I know, a huge brouhaha about parking meters. So when you talk about that within this that we're talking about now, will those be, you're talking about parking improvements that are gonna happen later and not what's going in currently, right?
Correct, Commissioner Warwick. Really, the plan and how urban renewal law is that you have to put anything and everything that you may anticipate. So it may or may not be something that is brought to your attention to be approved at a later point for a project within the list. But we had to include parking facilities and really just outline what we may anticipate looking at. So, of course, it has nothing to do with the plan that's in place. But for future improvements, if we broaden the scope or change anything, we just wanted to make sure that it was included.
I believe that to be true. I just kind of wanted to get it out there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Allgood?
Yeah, Stephen, I really like the new boundaries versus the boundaries we had previously. I think the previous one was too small. I think this one encompasses a lot more of one of the things I'm very concerned about when we start an urban renewal area is that we're truly addressing blight. I don't like to kind of look for blight. I mean, and the previous boundaries I struggled with having the blight that I was concerned with. This area that you have outlined here, I believe encompasses a lot more areas that need improvement. You know, I'm talking like 12th to 16th between the railroad tracks in Chicago, and down north of there we have some pretty dilapidated RV and mobile home parks and things like that could use some help. So I really do appreciate the increase in size here. And so anyway, the only thing I want to say is the fact that we're really recognizing and identifying areas of blight, I feel are just extremely important rather than a fundraising thing for downtown or something that we're really going to fix some areas that really, really need it. And this, I believe, encompasses that.
Perfect. Thank you for your feedback.
Mr. Chairman, just a question for Stephen. Stephen, I understand the sidewalks. I rode my bike growing up on a lot of those old sidewalks. They look really familiar.
Yeah.
I understand all of that, and just you know, how some of those things are just totaled or need to come up. Lighting, security, totally get that. Lived around here my whole life. I remember 70s and 80s, 90s. Yeah, it's very important stuff. Parking lot improvements, I understand those too. But let me just ask this question. Isn't that, I mean, these are in some blighted areas. I would think that would have to be determined, but I mean, isn't that currently a city street department job? I mean, doesn't that come out of that budget? Somebody explain that to me, because or give me that opinion, because I'm looking at it going, maybe the city street, should it already be on that, or should it have already been on some of those sidewalks, because they look pretty bad, pretty dangerous.
I'll defer to Ray Lynn here. I've got a thought, but it's probably not as good as hers, so.
So, yes, so sidewalks are a part of the city street budget, but it's all about priorities, right? So if you have an intersection that has so much traffic that you have to mitigate that's going to come as a higher priority than a sidewalk, right? And so it's Rob's determination of what that priority is in the community. And so a lot of times what it comes down to, for example, is that we're using, in some of these low-income neighborhoods, CDBG funds, which is a grant, to put in sidewalks. We're doing a project right now down Arthur Street, instead of street funds. So those are the types of projects that end up happening instead of using street funds, because streets are more expensive than sidewalks. So.
Yeah, right. And I went through that specific project. I went through that RFP right here. Okay, I've researched that, so I understand that. I just think that it's almost like we're pulling from a URA committee that I feel like should have I know Rob has a say-so in a lot of that, I get that, but I think this committee would be able to determine some of that, Mr. Chairman. And, you know, maybe come up with part of that idea. I think City Street should maybe be fixing these things a while ago, or, you know, declaring areas that need help with security, and we would move on that, versus waiting for an urban renewal to be established to fix that stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allgood?
I was just wanting to respond to Mr. Moore's comments a little bit. Every year we set a budget. We try to, the city sets a budget. There is definitely limited funds in streets and sidewalks, and so as Raylene said, it's kind of a priority situation. Back when this, and Mr. Hildy can probably elaborate as well, but back when this first urban renewal started, East Urban Renewal area, we had a lot of interest east of town. We had no money for infrastructure. Urban renewal raised that money for infrastructure, and this is kind of the same situation as, again, going east and north from the courthouse. Those are areas, I mean, we have, I haven't been there real recently, but we still have uncovered streets with water lines and stuff there, and so this just gives us kind of a savings account or some funds to catch up on that stuff, because there's so, I mean, we still have dirt roads in Caldwell. So it's just a matter of trying to raise money to get ahead of some of this stuff, and this is just a mechanism to do that.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I also understand that city street department has a budget too, and there are reserves there that could be used to some of that too, so I just wanted to bring that up.
And one of the points that holds us accountable is when a plan is put together, it's gotta be pretty specific on the projects and its intentions. So when we say streets, it's gotta go for streets and sidewalks, so. Other questions? Mr. Allgood?
Sorry. So I realize this is really preliminary, Stephen, but are we identifying properties that will be exempted from this urban renewal, that kind of thing? You know, we ran into that previously. Are we back to that spot yet, or is this too early for that?
Yes, Commissioner Allgood, really, we're trying to determine, the boundaries. I think we're gonna uncover a lot of that up front. Good thing that we were able to identify that in the previous plan as well. So that's something that's on our radar, certainly. But for tonight, or for this evening, really, we just wanna know, hey, is this plan too large? Does it cover enough area? Does it cover the right areas? As we were looking at this plan, and I'll highlight this with doesn't show here, but on 14th Avenue and Chicago, more or less, we do have some affordable housing projects that are really focused on that area. And one of the benefits of Caldwell in this corridor is that we are covered by the census tract, and it's attractive for these potential tax credit projects that bring in that affordable housing product. Those projects are typically pretty slim in terms of their budget. They work with thin margins. So I'm thinking in this case, for that particular area, we could support some of those projects with urban renewal as it relates to the infrastructure, bridges, roads, streets, those types of things, so that those costs that would otherwise be absorbed by that project could be offset by the public investment. And we want that product as well, because I think this area, with the close proximity to Sky Ranch, North Ranch, you have jobs that are very close by. So we just want to make sure we have a place where we can support projects like that should they choose to locate here. And I doubt I answered your question. I apologize. I just kind of went on a rant there. But more or less, we want to know if this is the right size, the right scope, the right areas that should be covered, and we'll take this and proceed with the subsequent workshop to talk more about it.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Clogging everything.
Mr. Garcia?
Mr. Chair, so I appreciate the blanket that we have here, because there's a lot of businesses that I've kind of seen that need help, especially those existing, because I know we're always talking about the new projects that are being built and trying to encourage people to come in and build more. There's also existing buildings or businesses that are struggling, particularly like A-Gem Supply, Olden Mills, that kind of area, that need help. And obviously, those folks won't do it on their own. So I see, as we start getting further into this and we start kind of, looking at, and I guess what I'm getting at, I think we're gonna be leaning on to you guys to kind of see where the growth is spurting and kind of focus on those areas, because it's a pretty big blanket, and obviously we can't take care of everybody. But we'd like to really focus on those areas that really, I think, could enhance Caldwell and kind of lure more people in, especially with a lot of the properties around A-Gem that are vacant that will need to be developed. So I think us kind of finding ways to encourage more people to come in, I think, instead of those that are already coming in.
Yeah.
And helping those people out. So, but I think as we get further into this and you start developing those numbers, I think that would help us kind of pinpoint those locations a little bit better and help you out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll get a better map, Counselor, or, Commissioner Doty. Your comments are well received with regard to the map and sharing it out. I'll make sure Dave Marston in our mapping department puts together a map. I really just want it preliminarily come in here and draw something out, and I can never be a tattoo artist. You guys can see how crooked that bottom line is down there, but I'll get something a little more professionally, produced so that you guys can share that out.
Mr. Chairman, just to last thing here for information, I agree with Adam. I think there's a lot of area there. You specifically named some businesses there that, gosh, 20 years ago, 30 or 40, that whole area was something.
Yep.
Going under the 10th Street exit with Councilman Allgood, him and I together, and walking and showing him some of the areas there on 11th. I don't know, did we go clear to 12th? I'm not quite sure, but we walked through that and just looking at that through across railroad tracks to the freeway. I mean, there's a lot of business that used to exist when I was a kid, 70s and 80s, that I think that some of that stuff's still standing there. There was an old an old bus depot there, a lot of law offices. It looks like there's a lot of opportunity. So I agree with a lot of that. I think that it's been left, been prioritized in other areas. So I think there's quite a bit of area there that could be brought back up.
Any other comments?
Just one. You know, when we did the East Urban Renewal area, and again, I wasn't part of it, it was before my time, but there was a plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
We had industrial plans, we had commercial plans downtown that worked out wonderfully. As we go forward, not tonight, but as we go forward, I would like to see us have a plan for this. What we see would fit here, probably not industrial, but like you talked about, affordable housing and some of these businesses being renovated. I would like to see us develop a plan of what we think we would like to see. I mean, 'cause again, what we did to the east was, we had a plan from the start,
Mhm.
and this would help the same way.
Okay. Yeah, that's good feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right, thank you.
Yep. We've got a couple of minutes. We can take a few comments from people in the audience if they'd like to share some thoughts. You're more than welcome to step up. If you'd give us your name and
I am Dominique Moreno. I am the CDBG specialist for the city.
welcome.
Good evening. Since this is still in the early stages, I wanted to just give some feedback on possibly a change. So CDBG has really focused on the North End community. A lot of our funds, the grant has been focused in those areas. And so it's been noted that it has a higher concentration of poverty in older homes than most areas throughout Caldwell. Additionally, Caldwell's rental occupancy rate is exceptionally low and rents are higher than the median income. I did provide you guys with a little packet so you can look at. And I pulled data from the ACS data that HUD provides, and it's from 2011, 2015. This specific neighborhood I'm talking about is actually located within census tracts 212 and 213. The first one is block group 1, tract 213. It has 74.44% of low to moderate income residents. I do want to note too that I used to work for the school district for 10 years before coming to the city, and I worked up at Sacagawea Elementary as a secretary. And so I saw firsthand those youth and those families and literally where they lived. This would include Stardust Trailer Park. This would include Town Circle. This would include Elgin, Denver, all those areas down there. And so just keep note, HUD determines that 50%, 80% AMI is low income. So 0 to 30% is extremely low income. And so if you turn the page to block group 2, track 212, this area, and it's the blue highlighted line, this is outlining that specific area, and they have 63.48% of low to moderate income residents. Again, these homes were built in the 50s and 60s. A lot of them have lead-based paint. A lot of them are blighted, unfortunately. And then to the next page, block group 2, track 213. This area has a 91.01% of low to moderate income residents. The average of all three of these block groups that incorporate parts of the north end came out to 76.31%. So with CDBG funds, I am only able to do so much. We are allocated a certain amount each year. This last year was $444,484. I am proud to say that my predecessor, they did focus heavily in this area in 2019. CDBG did help 7 first-time home buyers with assistance to purchase their first home. These homes were located on Denver Street. They were also rehabilitated for them. We also were able to, in 2019, to do Lions Park lighting improvements. CDBG was able to install 4 street lights. This increased the safety and allowed longer hours of usage at neighborhood parks for children. And that was obviously a CDBG eligible. And there's a lot that goes into projects being eligible and not eligible. And I could give you a whole list. Can't remember them off the top of my head, but I have lists of it. So if you would like that, I can get that for you. 2020 and 2021, CDBG was able to help 3 first-time home buyers with assistance to purchase their first home on East Freeport. And another 3 was able to purchase their first home on Albany Street. It should be noted that without the help of these funds, these homeowners would not have been able to even buy their first home. And currently, as most of you know, City Council just approved our partnering with Autumn Gold Affordable Housing to create 10 single-family homes on East Elgin Street. CDBG was able to provide $50,000 per lot, and again, creating affordable housing in this underserved area. I went and met with a colleague, Paul Webster, with the school district today, and we were just kind of talking about, like, what's the school district zones, and what are the schools in the area that would be affected by this area. And it should be noted, Sacagawea, for one, is one of the elementaries. That school feeds into Syringa Middle School, so there's students from Sacagawea, Syringa, and Caldwell High in Canyon Springs. The other zone that this is in is Van Buren, and they feed into Jefferson. And then we also have Lincoln Zone, and that is over off more Simplot Boulevard area, but that is the other zone. So students who attend these schools, Sacagawea Elementary has 430 students as of today. Van Buren has 544 students, and Lincoln Elementary has 375. And as I said before, these 2 filter into the 2 middle schools, Jefferson and Syringa, and then to the high schools. I just wanted to make it a point. I think focusing on possibly changing the boundaries would be very helpful and beneficial for our youth and just our community as a whole. I don't want them to feel like they have been forgotten, because I have heard that in the past. My own personal side, aside from being a city employee, my own daughter's friends have said that. They feel like their part of the neighborhood has been forgotten. And I don't want them to continue feeling that way, because they're not. And I just feel like our youth and our young people living within this area would definitely benefit from these changes. So just take it into consideration is all I ask. That's all I have for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dominique. Any questions? David?
Okay, CDBG.
Yes, sir.
So you said it financed homes in 2017 and
2019?
helped finance.
Yeah.
Tim,
Help give some assistance,
Okay.
yes.
Explain to me how that assistance comes about. Where do those funds come from?
So if they were to, so CDBG is a formula grant, In 2016, we became an entitlement, so when we hit 50,000 people in Caldwell, originally we were given funds through the state, but then when we hit 50,000 population, we were able to become an entitlement. So now we get our funds directly from HUD, and they come to the city, rather than from the state.
Got it.
Mhm. And so then they are allocated, like previous years, the most we ever received was about 500,000, and that was the year prior. So I think that was 2021, or 2022. But the most recent was 444,000. I should state too that, we just went to a conference last week, and they were talking about how Congress is actually wanting to deduct the amount they give for entitlement communities. So just be aware of that. That could happen. That's all based on Congress and HUD. So
So somebody will apply to you for one of these houses in these areas that you just described?
they had before. This was before me, but yes, that's what they would have done. That is when they did have a home buyers assistance program, CDBG did. As of right now, we don't have that. But I am beginning our action plan, which is part of this, and I would like to incorporate that again, because it's needed.
I was the president of Caldwell Lions in 2017. I've been a member of them for 31 years.
Mhm.
The lighting that you put in down there tremendously helped a lot of things down there. Less crime,
Yeah,
opened it up to folks. I call that the land of time forgot.
yeah,
So I appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah.
And my last question is this. You're proposing what area to change?
So-
Because that kind of went right by.
Yeah,
me.
no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, all right.
So the north end, so we are talking about, so if you see, it's really hard to tell, but there is a light blue line, kind of like how that one is, more of a teal. And so these areas, they're literally called block groups. That's how HUD defines, an area. And so that whole area, which I don't believe is on that, is that right? Parts of it are, but not all of it. So I'm talking, and I don't want to put out anyone, but I do recall, Counselor Stodic asking when I first did the annual action plan, behind Mr. V's, behind Bi-Mart, behind Jack in the Box, all behind there, and on Chicago, 10th of Chicago, all behind there.
Yeah.
Would CDBG be able to do anything there?
Mhm.
And the short answer would be yes, but there's a lot of things that we'd have to do in order to get that to be blighted, like to be designated as blighted. And like I said, my grant is very limited. I don't have as much funds as I'd like, but that's not my choice. But it's all behind there, and then going up towards like Simplot Boulevard, where that car wash was at.
Yeah.
That kind of area, yeah.
Okay.
And maybe like going to Stardust Trailer Park, Luby Park, that kind of area.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for. And I already have, like I said, we have the project on Elgin. We're also doing the Arthur Street, so we are going down Arthur Street with my grant as well, which that had been,
Yeah.
funds had been allocated from previous years. So,
I live on the 700 block of Denver.
oh,
So I totally understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I totally agree with that.
Mhm.
There are a lot of good folks down there, and there's a lot of blight. There's a lot of things that could be improved.
yes,
But if I had a magic wand and I could save the world, I'd do it. But boy, I'd start with my neighborhood first, maybe.
I get
But
that.
I appreciate your
Yeah,
help
of
on
course.
that.
Mhm.
And then how does a person get hold of you? What's your office number?
They can directly call City Hall,
Yeah.
or they can call 208-455-4642.
And you're Dominique.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions for Dominique?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Warwick?
so it sounds like you're wanting to go more north of the freeway
Yes.
than this map shows.
Yeah.
See, I run the Caldwell Meals on Wheels program.
Uh-huh.
That is my route.
Okay.
I drive
Thank
through
you.
it every day, and it definitely needs help with infrastructure in those neighborhoods. The sidewalks those are the land time forgot, right there.
Yeah.
There's sidewalks that have been used and abused and
Yeah.
never fixed.
Right. And that's
So-
why, CDBG's been focused, a lot in that area, to try to help alleviate somewhat. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We might have time for one more comment. We have another discussion item during this workshop, but we may have time for one more quick comment if anybody has one. Okay. It takes us to our next, item, and it showed up on a, update of the agenda for this evening. Most of you have seen that. It has to do with the Amanos project. And Mark, is this you, or? Oh, okay, great. We have an update from Becca.
Becca Alamia, thank you guys. I don't usually get to be the one who's up here, so this is kind of fun. So we just wanted to provide a quick update. I know we haven't been here at the last couple meetings, and we have been diligently communicating with the city and our attorney, and so it looks like it was maybe lost in translation of where we were at. So we just wanted to provide a quick update for everyone. It may not be a surprise to many of you, but we have been pursuing another private purchase of a different property that's also located in downtown. There was just some benefits to that of a little bit of a quicker time for us to be able to get that project off the ground as opposed to a complete build out. We had our appraisal on that project today, and so if everything goes as planned, we're about 30 to 40 days from closing on that. And so for the meantime, we would like to hold on to our land until that's completely finalized, and then if that doesn't come to fruition as we have planned, if the appraisal doesn't pan out how we think it's going to, then we would be finalizing our project with our RFP.
Thank you for that update. Questions? Who's going to ask the first question?
Mr. Chair, is this for
Mr. Doty?
further discussion in here as to whether or not
I think we could,
what we're going to do with the RFP that Amanos has?
I think that would be a good question to ask. Mark?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Doty?
I would like to see an action item. Since it's not on this one, I guess you're automatically gonna get 30 days, right? And if at that time, things still haven't moved along, this has been going on for several months now, as you know. We're trying to get some, I guess, final decisions on that property and on that land. So I would like to see it come back as an action item. And if we're not moving on it, then let's close it out and get the land back to the city and move forward with whatever's going to happen in regards to that.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. Other comments or questions? Very good. Thanks, Becca.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Okay, that gives us about 13 minutes before the opening kickoff, and we'll take a break till then.